Okay, well, welcome everybody to this webinar on the subject of the Healing of with Animals retreat. The idea with this webinar was really to tell you what the retreat is all about, what the content is, what you can expect from your time there, and then to answer any questions that you might have about the retreat. So I'm Jacqueline Buckingham. I'm an animal communicator, and I also teach animal communication, teach other people how to understand the animals more clearly, and then in doing so, help them to live the most fulfilled lives that they can have. And I'm here with Ben Skerrett, and I'm going to ask Ben to introduce himself.
Hi everyone. My name's Ben. I offer equine facilitated experiential learning, and I've been helping people with learning about themselves through being facilitated by horses for since 2014. I've been doing that and running workshops and teaching, and my work really centers around authenticity, helping people become their authentic selves and learning how to work on the things that get in the way of us being authentic. And so, yeah, I focus on that. That's been my focus point for the last 12 to 14 years. And yeah, I feel very privileged to do this work. It's a great gift to be able to support people in that process. And a lot of the work that I do is based on my own healing journey as a horse trainer and some of the deeper spiritual learnings that I had as a result of working with different horses and clients for many years, and really essentially learning that it's not about the horse. The horse was just a mirror of me and my own issues that I wasn't wanting to face, and that became the centerpiece for me to reclaim my authentic self, and then to pay that forward, and now to share that with people that I work with. Um, Yeah, it's a brief introduction.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, Ben and I met, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. We were introduced by a mutual friend who'd done both of our work. And yeah, I was really struck by the kind of overlap between our work, if you like, because a lot of what happens with our animals, and, people mostly come to me because they're having some kind of concern with their animal. Maybe it's a behavioral thing, maybe it's an anxiety or something that might look like anger or all sorts of things. And 9 times out of 10, that can be some sort of a reflection of what's happening in their immediate environment, maybe with the people that they're living with, or the people that are nearby, the people they're meeting. So what Ben's doing with horses, it really is yeah, like a shining a light on this part of our relationship with animals and how they respond to us and reflect that back to us through our behavior or through their behavior. So yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So we got chatting and it sort of seemed like there was a really good overlap there. So I've been teaching animal communication since 2016. What's that? Yeah, 10 years now. And yeah, practicing as an animal communicator as well, and run courses online and run courses here in Australia and in the UK as well. And yeah, and then jump into partnerships from time to time with people like Ben. Um, yeah, so we can get a bit more into talking about the retreat itself and what exactly we'll be offering, and what you can expect from your time with us. So yeah, so Ben, do you want to say a little bit about how does your work come into the retreat week?
Absolutely. So the exercises that I do with the horses are all about embodiment. They're all about it's experiential learning. So you're we're learning certain activities before we go in with the horses, like body scans. So the body scan I like to do is learning how to utilize the sensations, energetic, emotional, and physical sensations of the body, and to interpret that as part of your intuitive guidance system. So, one of the things that I think is like a core component of the work that I do, and particularly in the retreat, which is becomes a very immersive thing that you get to experience because you're in it for 6 days, is how much your body is communicating as part of your subconscious mind to your trying to communicate all these intuitive messages to you through your emotions, through sensations in your body. And I always say that your body is the horse that your head rides around on. So your body is the storehouse. It's your subconscious mind. It stores all of your memories, all of your feelings, all of your patterns and habits that you've ever had, and it stores the whole picture. It stores everything. And so that is a really important piece when it comes to working with trauma and working with healing and being able to overcome that trauma, because when we're not able to be in our body and we're not able to interpret these intuitive messages of our body and understand them, it can be very tricky for us to heal. And so the body scan is really about learning to unclog that inner guidance system and to reconnect with it, so that you're connected to those intuitive faculties, your inner guidance, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. And through doing those body scans before we go in with the horses, it kind of sets us into a state of being open to possibility of a different experience that we could have with the horse, an experience of where we're more deeply in presence, when we're open and we're actually in a state of being aware of more than just our limited self, if that makes sense. And so I use these body scans as a tool for when people go in with the horses to be able to set them up to have a mystical experience with the horse. And again, the mystical experience is really based upon the subjective experience of the person and their own unique journey. And so for me, it's really all about helping people reclaim their authentic self. And it often relates a lot to, aspects of ourself that we feel shame about, that we feel like we can't express to the world, that we've learned to bury deep, and that we don't feel that, we can't love the parts of ourselves that we can't love. And so those aspects of ourself become the barriers in which that stop us from being able to express ourselves authentically and to experience the love, to receive love, and to give love in the way that we want to, and it stops us from living a life that aligns with that authentic part of ourselves. And so often in life, we get stuck in our conditioning, in our past, and our past is basically running our future. And our current experiences, and that essentially doesn't allow us to be able to move into our authentic self and to experience a completely different reality. So when we do these body scans, we're breaking that mold and we're going deeper into our intuitive faculties to be able to explore what those blocks might be, what feelings have we not kind of allowed ourselves to express and own, what truths, authentic truths about ourselves have we not allowed ourselves to express and own, and to actually verbalize and to embody. And through exploring that, when we go in with the horse, we have an experience because we're open. The horse is going to mirror back to us a very important part of that journey for us, whatever that means for us subjectively. Now, for everyone, it's different. Obviously, there's a unique way in which people explore it. But a big theme, I guess, for a lot of the sessions that I do is it usually has to do with authentic self-expression, the healing journey, and being able to receive and give love. They're the common kind of themes that come up, and obviously, releasing trauma, releasing the past, and healing the wounds that are kind of holding people back. And the horses, they respond to our body language. So when we're in tune with our body and our intuition, and we finally connect deeply to that part of ourselves, the horse is going to mirror that back to us because they don't really have an ego. They're just in the present moment. So they respond intuitively and they trust their body. So they respond intuitively to our energy in a subconscious way, and then that creates this experience between the person that's going in and the horse. And I've witnessed a lot of really transformational experiences that people have had with horses. One of the workshops that I did early on, there was a woman that went in and she was pregnant, and she went in, and before she went in, she had this process outside of the round pen where she had a lot of fear about having the child that she was basically pregnant with, because she'd had a previous experience of where she had a miscarriage, and she almost lost the baby and almost died herself. So she had a lot of fear and a lot of things coming up for her around this child and having this baby. So when she went into the arena, this horse just came straight over and put its nose directly on her belly, and the horse just sat there for 15 minutes. And it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever witnessed. It was like they were in a divine communion, kind of just sharing this special moment. And it lasted for 15 minutes. And by the time it was finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Everybody was, in tears, because it was just very special and sacred. And, when she shared that with us, all the information that she got about how she had all that fear, she said, when that horse touched her belly, all of her fear just went away. And she said she felt completely, like safe. And she knew with certainty that it was all going to be okay. She just had this deep sense of knowing from that experience. And then the same horse, 20 minutes later, another lady went in, and the horse didn't want to have anything to do with her. And it was all about self-love and, learning to love herself and stop trying to and her stopping this process of trying to seek approval outside of herself and love from other people. So there was a really powerful, experience in that for her as well. But the same horse, 20 minutes apart, responding completely different to different energies. So again, that I guess is a great example of how those experiences become subjective to the person that's coming in and what that person brings with them, if that makes sense. And so that's a bit of like a window into some of the potential experiences that you can have as a result of in doing that deeper work and going in with the horses. There's obviously lots of different ways in which the activities that I do facilitate that kind of internal growth and learning and healing. There's some that are based around boundaries. There's an exercise where we work on boundaries and energy fields, and we're basically looking at how the heart projects an electromagnetic field around the body, and this field is an energy field that goes out. There's a big strong layer that's about 9 feet around the body. There's successive layers that go further out, and they've been able to measure this with quantum field meters. They can measure the heart's, because the heart has a field, and this field is measurable in science. And so boundaries and energy fields is all about sensing your own boundaries and your own boundary needs, and setting boundaries, as well as respecting the boundaries of others. And there can be a lot of stuff that comes up around emotional and physical boundaries with people, particularly around trauma, and being a child, especially if you think of childhood trauma and the fact that a lot of kids feel like they don't have a choice in a lot of situations that they're exposed to as a child. So boundaries are a huge one to explore energetically with people. And then there's other ones that I do with horses that are centered around the heart's agenda and listening to your body as a form of intuitive wisdom. And specifically in these exercises, listening to the heart. The heart has its own agenda. It has its own wisdom. It has its own brain, and it has something that it wants to share with you. And so we do an exercise where we go in and we access the heart's agenda, and we access this so that we can learn to live from that place, live from our heart's agenda instead of from our intellectual intelligence, because we tend to typically spend most of our life living in our head, not living from our heart space and letting that lead our experience. And so when we start, living from our heart-centered awareness, our life can be radically changed and transformed, and we can experience a very, very different reality, obviously filled with more love and gratitude and all those amazing things that we want to experience. But the other important thing to remember about when we start living from that heart-centered awareness is that the heart's electromagnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain. So if you think about the amplification of energy when we're in a loving, a heart-centered space, our heart is generating that field around our body, and it's going to influence the external world in a big way. People are going to sense that, they're going to feel that. But when we're in a head and we're disconnected from our body, we don't have access to that. Our body actually is working against us because we become what I like to call incongruent. What we're thinking and feeling and what we truly feel are all out of alignment. There's no congruency there. And so again, having that heart-centered awareness is all about becoming congruent and leading from the heart, and from that space of gratitude and love, and letting your body be a part of that intuitive awareness to guide you to that place. And that really is, again, the center point of that heart-centered awareness activity that we do. And there's obviously more activities that we do, but that's probably the core of it. So I'll hand it over to Jacqueline, and she can maybe share with you some of the things that she likes to take abroad.
No, well, I was actually going to go back and pick up on something you said a while back about, yeah, those two activities of the woman with the pregnant woman, and then the other woman who was looking for approval outside of herself.
Yep.
Um, and it just made me think that, or reminded me, when Ben's doing these activities, so what we tend to do is we will sometimes split you into two groups. So one group will be with me, one group will be with Ben, and then we'll swap over. And then you get to be with each of us, and do these exercises. Everybody gets to do all of them. But what happens in the smaller groups is that you also get to witness, what's happening for the other people. So, someone might be in the round pen with the horse, having this experience that Ben was describing, the heart-centered experience or the boundaries or whatever it might be. And then everybody else is observing and also paying attention, like, what are you noticing about what's happening? What's happening in you as you're noticing what's happening. So there's many, many different layers to this whole experience that Ben's offering. So yeah, it's often, I often hear people coming back afterwards and having these really profound experiences, even just from watching other people interacting with the horses, as well as, of course, with their own experience with the horse, because everyone gets time with a horse on several occasions. So yeah, so I just wanted to add that in there as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Popped into my mind. Yeah, and then with the interspecies communication, so I take people through, from the very kind of foundational aspects of what interspecies or animal communication is, how it works, the different ways that we can pick up information ourselves, the different ways that we can share information with the animals. There are multiple different forms of communication exchange that happen. We get to practice, with each other. We have play some little telepathic games with each other and see what happens there. It just feels like a really nice, soft way to kind of get started, and it's a bit playful and not so much pressure, maybe, to get it right. And then, as people start to build confidence with that, we then move into communicating with animals. I work mostly using photographs. So when you come along, you'll be invited to bring photographs of your animals in your life. And we get to communicate with them. You get to communicate with one another's animals as the week progresses. And also introduce different ways that you can actually use animal communication in your day-to-day life. There are so many different ways we can apply the work. So yeah, behavioral issues is one of those things, but also, making sure your animal is healthy, and is there anything that they need, and is there anything that they want to communicate with you? Is there anything they need in their environment that's, working or not working? Could they be more comfortable, and if so, how? They can tell us about their past. More often animals are being adopted and rescued. Thank you, to all those who are offering homes to animals who've been rescued, who've maybe had a trickier start in life. But because of that tricky start in their life, that can then affect some of their behavior. They can take on certain personality traits that they've developed as a result of that difficult start in their life. Much the same as humans do. We get shaped, by our childhood, as it were, and they get shaped by their puppyhood or their kittenhood or their foalhood, or whatever it might be. But we can also talk to them about that. We can ask them, what happened to you before? Are you willing to talk about that? So we can learn, like, well, this is what happened, so therefore it makes sense that they're now behaving in this way. And then we can reassure them, well, that's not going to happen anymore, and I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen to you anymore, and I'll do the things you need so that you can be reassured it's not going to happen anymore. And then they'll relax and be more happy, content, and fully embodied animals. So we get into that. We also look at we go into behavioral details in quite some depth. How do we work with an animal's behavior? How do we help them to understand what's happening? How they can explain to us exactly what's happening from their perspective. 9 times out of 10, when an animal is behaving in a certain way, obviously there's the aspect that Ben was talking about, where they're can be reflecting things back to us, mirroring things back to us. But if it's come as a part of their early life experience, then the more we can understand about that, the more we can work with them to help them to understand that they are now safe. And quite often the behavior is a response to a misunderstanding, if you like, of the situation. Maybe they're afraid that thing's going to happen again, or maybe they're afraid, of men wearing hats, for example. I've had that situation where I talked to an animal, and anytime a man wearing a hat came near them, they just completely freaked out. And it's because they'd had a really bad experience in the past of a man wearing a hat. Well, that sounds very simplified, but what we can then do is we can explain to them that not all men who wear hats are dangerous and are going to be, cause them that same level of distress or even pain. And we can help them to adapt and adjust, understanding that, the more we do these things and the more that thing doesn't keep repeating itself, they can begin to relax and trust and realize that, yes, what we're saying is true. So they don't have to be scared of that situation. So we go through some of those different things. We will also be practicing with some of the animals that are on the land there as well. So we will be communicating with the horses. Ben will be working with them with his work. And then we will also go down to the paddocks and have a little chat with the horses and find out something, about them from their own mouths, as it were. Once we've started to build our confidence in our animal communication listening abilities. So in addition to the animal communication and the equine facilitated learning side of things, then there's the whole rest of the retreat that's wrapped around that time. So it's a residential retreat. You'll be either camping in your own tent or van, if that's your preference. And then for those that like a bit more comfort, or maybe you're flying and you can't carry those things with you, we also offer bell tents from a local company that provides these really beautiful bell tents. So the point being that we are all sleeping on the land, with the land. We're all staying there together on site. So that builds this energy field, if you like, between the whole group that deepens and deepens. It deepens over the lunch times, breakfast, evenings. There's fire pits. We can sit around the fire pit at night and just swap stories. And we start the mornings also with a bit of movement practice, just getting the body going, a bit of stretching, maybe some gentle yoga, and some meditation practice that will help to drop you into that beautiful connected space that will carry you through the rest of the day. So those are some of the other activities that happen. There's also a really lovely swimming hole that's not that far away. It's like a 15-minute walk. So people were making good use of that last year because it was pretty hot. Yeah, and the site itself is just very beautiful. I don't know what your thoughts about the site are, Ben, but for myself, I just felt that the whole space was really held. There's like distant mountains, and it just really feels like you're in this kind of hug with all the mountains around you, and then the big camphor laurel trees all around you, and it just feels very, very connected, very held. yeah, very safe, beautiful space.
Yeah, it's very definitely very beautiful out there. The mountains are second to none, just the way they wrap around, and yeah, it's a very beautiful space. Yeah, it's hard to describe it in words. You have to experience it.
Mm,
But I believe on the Facebook event there's actually a picture of the mountains, I believe, and that's yeah, that's probably one of the better pictures to look at in
mm,
relation to getting a bit of an idea of just how beautiful it is out there.
mm.
So yeah, it's a beautiful, as far as nature goes, it's second to none. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
And
and it's even called the Promised Land. That area of
yeah,
just outside Bellingen near Glenafar, the area is called Promised Land, and it has that kind of magical, Eden-like feel to it. Yeah. And then there's it's all fully catered as well. We have this really beautiful cook that we found last year, and she's coming back again this year, which we're really thrilled about. And I mean, I was just blown away. She managed to somehow rustle up these meals. I mean, rustle up. I mean, that doesn't do them justice. They were amazing meals, and every single meal catered for every single dietary need that you could possibly imagine. People registered and told us all they're gluten-free, dairy-free, celiac, every possible thing you can imagine. And she worked with it all and produced these absolutely delicious, colorful, gorgeous meals, and even snacks, and yeah, sweet treats. And yeah, so that was quite a I think a lot of people really enjoyed that part of the retreat, the food.
absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I would have to agree. It was a beautiful food, and in that setting, and just everything coming together, is it's an amazing combination. So, what's there not to love about it? Is all I can say.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we've got Mel with us right now, and Mel, I don't know if you had anything that you were curious to ask about the retreat, anything you were thinking of before you joined us, or anything that's popped up from what we've said. I'm just gonna ask you to unmute.
Um, the thing that concerns me is that I have always been very nervous around horses, and I imagine being one of those people with anxiety that the horse doesn't want to come near. And so I'm just wondering, do you really expect people to be confident around the horses before to be a part of the retreat?
No, no, I don't at all. It's a good question, and it's a question I get asked a lot. Um, the experiences are they're all on the ground, so it's very experiential based. Um, the horses that we work with are very gentle, very good with people, very quiet. So they're great horses to have that first experience with. Um, I, yeah, I feel like anybody from any walk of life that has had no experience with horses can jump in and still get a lot of benefit from it. So on a personal level, I feel like all of the exercises are designed, to help people with whatever they're feeling around that as well. So it's all very supportive and safe, and you only have to go explore it at the level that you feel confident and safe with. So there's never any pressure to go deeper or further than what you're ready for. And there's also, a lot of, amazing support in that experience. And a lot of the people that are there haven't had a lot of experience with horses, so it's unique for them as well. And it's a very safe environment for that. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. It sounds good. Um, I don't know that there's anything else at the moment. I would. Um, I'm not in a situation to do it this year, but I would love to be able to do it, and perhaps next year if it's running.
Mm,
Um, uh,
yeah.
but I've been very curious ever since Jacqueline started talking about it in emails to find out about it.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Because I would love to do it, and I have a friend in Queensland that I hope might come down for it too.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else. Just a trivial one though, but I'm pre-diabetic, so that's another very different meal thing, because that's how that would work out. I don't know,
Mm.
because
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
the fiber and the carbohydrates and the sugars, it takes a bit of balancing, so it's a bit more difficult perhaps than some of the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, well, what Tony tends to do is she will offer different options, so there'll be
Okay.
last year we had, some people were veggie, some were vegan, some were meat eaters, and she might
Okay.
sometimes provide a mix for everybody so you could pick the thing that worked for your diet.
Yeah. That
If she
that
made
would be
something
fine.
that it did include gluten, she'd always make something for the celiacs. If she made something that included sugar, she'd make the sugar-free version,
All right.
um, so it does give you that capacity to, pick and choose and work, for what works
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Sounds like there'd be no problem at all.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing with what you're saying about the horses as well, yeah, if you've never been around horses, one of the first times that you'll sort of be in the round pen with the horses, Ben's with the horse anyway. And there's this really lovely, there are several times where the horses will um, almost like, what would you say? Like they will tune into you. You can tell that that horse has somehow kind of picked you, as it were. That's not quite the right phrase, but that
Hmm.
horse has, noticed you
Yeah.
and has decided that you're someone that it wants to get to know better in a really soft, beautiful, gentle way, and a very kind of inviting way. Not like, oh, I've got
Hmm.
my eye on you and I'm going to come for you. No, no, not that at all. But a really lovely, open-hearted, connected way. And it's a
Yeah.
really beautiful thing, again, to sort of witness that happening and to see that sort of, people just kind of have a little breath out, as they feel that welcome coming from the horse. Yeah.
Last year, I decided to have some horse riding lessons, beginners lessons, at a, a place near where I live, and it wasn't a place where you could bond with the horses easily. I suppose it was really the way it was set up. But
Mm,
uh, they were nice, but the poor old horses, had to take people around all the time, and
mm.
and they weren't necessarily responsive. And so I think this would be a very different experience with horses to what one was.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And also,
And
that is the other thing, when horses are in that situation, I don't know what your take on that, Ben, is, but my experience is that they do tend to have to shut down because horses are so sensitive. And if they're in that environment where they just got rider after rider after rider, and there's no chance to get to know them and connect with them beforehand, it's just, a kind of conveyor belt of riders almost. They have to shut themselves down because they just can't deal with that emotional stimulus, if you like.
it felt a bit
So
sad for some of them who were
yeah, yeah.
getting
So
a
you
bit
do
old.
end up with these slightly numbed out horses, whereas these ones on this property, the woman that owns the horses, and with Ben's horses as well, they've been working in this way for some time, so they're very open, they're very soft, and very, yeah, connected. Mm.
Sounds
Absolutely.
lovely.
Yeah,
Sounds really lovely.
one of the activities we do is a horse picking activity where you energetically tune into the horse that you're going to work with on that day.
Okay.
Um, and then we actually do an exercise where you're sitting blindfolded and we lead the horses around until they stop and pick someone.
Uh-huh.
They walk around in a circle, and the horse will eventually get to a point where they want to stop, and then they'll usually go and smell their leg, or they'll kind of say, "Yeah, this is the person that I'm picking today."
Mm.
So that's one of the
Yeah,
other activities we do as well, which is quite a powerful one for people. And
absolutely.
the horse
Yeah.
that picks them for a reason. There's always a really significant reason for why that is,
Yeah.
and obviously, we find out more about that as the week progresses.
Yeah. How many people are in a group? What's the maximum?
Well, we literally just, divided the group in half last year. So I think we had 14 people. So it was groups of seven. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
6 or 7 in each group. Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on the overall numbers, but we just split it down the middle. But we do have a cap on numbers for the whole retreat. We
Mhm.
wouldn't take more than, say, I don't know, 16 or 18. That would be our maximum. So yeah. Mm.
Okay.
Mm. Yeah, great. And another thing that came up for me as well is yeah, just about accessibility. It's quite accessible, the site as well. It's mostly pretty level walking there. There's no sort of, great hills to climb or, rough ground. It's fairly even
Yeah.
terrain. Um, and yeah, and then there's all sorts of different options in terms of the accommodation that people choose. The bell tents themselves do come with these huge inflatable queen beds. They're very luxurious. These inflatable queen beds all made up with doonas and like little fairy lights, and yeah, so it's like a little hotel room, camping in a little hotel room. Yeah, yeah.
I think sleeping in the back of the car is more my level.
Yeah, you can sleep in the back of the car. Yeah, whatever you prefer. Yeah, all
It
possible.
sounds lovely though. Yeah.
Um, okay, so we've probably only got a couple more minutes. Anything else, Ben, you wanted to add?
Um, no, not that I can think of. Yeah, I think, it's a very immersive experience. Obviously, the power of retreats comes from the immersion, from being, embodied and living in that and experiencing that for 6 days without any distractions from the external world and not being, and also it's you're out of your home environment. So
Yeah.
a lot of ways that's a very healthy thing for the healing because it establishes, a pattern interrupt for the typical habits and behaviors that we sometimes engage in when we're in our comfort zone and we're doing our normal routine, if that makes sense. So when you're in that environment and everyone's open and vulnerable and expressing those powerful things, then it's contagious, and then you're in a new environment, so it's like it creates more openness and more possibility for healing. And I think essentially one of the things we do every morning, or a lot of the mornings, is a mandala. Is one of the activities that we do, which is centered around a question, which is to facilitate. The question will facilitate some sort of inner reflection on this particular day, and we do that by drawing. So it's basically almost an art-based therapy that we do to facilitate inner learning, which is also a powerful way to set the intention and to explore inwardly each day. So I think, with that combined with being in a different environment and a beautiful environment in nature and having all those needs supported, and as well as the vulnerability and the openness of everyone and the heart-centered awareness that we sort of will fall into and start engaging with, is a really profound experience because it kind of really sets the tone for a deep immersive healing and animal communication and connection and love and all those things that I think as human beings are the center or the centerpiece of our life, the things that are most important for us as human beings to experience.
Yeah. And just getting back to nature and the kind of rhythm of nature, that rhythm of sort of waking up with the light and then going to bed when it gets dark. And, it's surprising actually, people were often going to bed, as it got dark. And then you look at your clock and it'd be like 8:30, but you were ready to go to sleep because somehow you shifted your whole body clock was now in rhythm with the natural world, and what was happening around you. So yeah, yeah. Okay, I think the last thing to say is just to remind people of the dates. So I always get this bit confused. So I think is it the 12th and the 19th of September, isn't it, Ben? Is
Yeah,
that right?
let me just
Yeah.
double check that to confirm that. Yeah, I'm pretty certain that's the
Yeah.
dates. It's
And what we'll do is we'll share this video on social media. You'll either be watching on social media or you might be watching it via our email link. And we'll also give you all the details of how to find out more. where you can register. Yeah, you can contact us and ask us more questions if you weren't able to be on this webinar. So, oh, and the last thing to say about it is that we will be, the end of May is the deadline for getting deposits paid, because we need to know by then whether or not we're going ahead, because by then, at that point, we'll have to start committing to outlay of, money and booking third party facilities and that sort of thing. So, so if you are interested in taking part, make a deposit payment by the end of May, so that we know that the numbers are there and we'll go ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And
And
yeah,
thanks, Mel, for your questions.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, obviously, just I guess if you have any questions about the retreat, you can always contact me or Jacqueline directly, via email or Facebook Messenger to ask quick questions directly. We're happy to answer them. So please make sure you go ahead and do that if you feel that you need to.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.